Pixar has just released its 28th film, Inside Out 2, so let's take this time to ponder on the last decade of Pixar. Today, I'm gonna rank Pixar's last 10 movies, including the Inside Out sequel. But before I do that, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Now, I decided to wait a little to rank these movies because a rewatch was required for many of them to make the most precise ranking possible, and I've gotta say, I think I'm there with this list. So let's get started. I've given my thoughts on Incredibles 2 various times over the last 6 years, but I'll still mention why I'm placing this in last. As a major fan of the original, Incredibles 2 is one of the most disappointing movies I've ever seen. The main storyline is quite basic and predictable, Bob doesn't get much action this time around, and Jack, a character who doesn't speak real words, is thrown in as the second main character. They even dedicate an entire scene to him fighting a raccoon for shits and giggles. But it feels like a waste of time. In my opinion, this movie is a straight up cash grab from start to finish. Looking back, as much as I wanted an Incredibles sequel for years, we really didn't need one after all. As happy as I am that this film's box office completely turned around last summer and ended up making Pixar some money, I think Elemental is just okay. What's most impressive here are the visuals and glimmering world they constructed. The idea of Elemental is inventive, so I have to give the creators some credit there. Nevertheless, I hate the romantic pairing of our two leads. I get they're supposed to be opposites, but I don't buy for a second that these two would end up together. It's just a poorly written romance. The story never feels fleshed out either, and I didn't feel emotionally invested when I was supposed to be. It's not the disappointment that was Incredibles 2, but compared to the other non-IP Pixar movies on this list, Elemental is least deserving of a sequel. Okay, so originally I was going to have this movie in my top 5, but on rewatch, I changed my mind about Lightyear. Thank God I watched this movie again. The first 30 minutes are fantastic from what I remembered, but then the film falls off a cliff. Nothing stands out in the middle act, our side characters are mediocre, and the final 30 minutes are filled with plot holes. It makes absolutely no sense how this was Andy's favorite movie in 1995. By making that canon, none of what we see from Buzz's toy collection, including himself, matches the versions of the characters they're based on in the movie. So that was a head-scratching decision. I just don't buy into what this film presents as a Buzz Lightyear movie, whether that be the characters, their motivations, or story. I think I was generous on first watch because it's a cool-looking animated space adventure. But as a Lightyear film, this was misguided. What the hell were they thinking with Zurg? They should have just made something similar to this instead in 3D animated form. We're in a territory now in which I consider the rest of these movies fairly good to great. On rewatch, Toy Story 4 was a breeze getting through. It's the lightest of the Toy Story movies. There is literally no darkness. At its core, Toy Story 4 is cute. I consider this the most kid-friendly of the bunch. This film is like an extended version of one of those Toy Story short specials. I don't think the plot warrants a feature-length movie, but I can't get over how warm this movie makes me feel, especially the ending. Does it live up to the first 3? No. Mainly because this isn't really a Toy Story movie. It's a Woody movie. So Buzz, Jesse, and the rest of the core group gets sidelined in favor of Woody and his story. Listen, I'm content with a lighter 4th installment following an all-time great trilogy. However, why call this movie Toy Story 4 when that's not what this is? Onward became notorious as Pixar's last movie before COVID, sending the company on a path towards box office gloom for the next 4 years. But that shouldn't take away from this being a solid fantasy adventure flick. The emotional and brotherly love aspects of Onward are the best takeaways. If you have a close relationship with your brother and never grew up with a dad, this film is gonna mesh with you. The tears will flow. If you judge this movie based on the first 2/3 though, it's nothing special. It's a pretty standard fantasy adventure animated film for kids. So Onward by no means is perfect, but the final moments make up for that. I went into Inside Out 2 worried. Worried because Pixar has recently been on a cold streak, with both movie quality and box office performance. But this sequel to a beloved Pixar film transitioned Pixar mostly back to form. Inside Out 2 offers enough fun and relatability for the whole family to enjoy. It's also just as funny and inventive as the original too. But what captivated me most here are its themes about friendship, selflessness, and imperfection. The driving force behind it all is a little emotion known as anxiety, showcasing how growing up is anything but stress-free. Like most sequels nowadays, it's not as good as the 2015 film, but nonetheless gets the job done, and stands out as one of Pixar's better movies of the last decade. Turning Red is a movie that has grown on me the last couple years. I may not connect with it as much as, say, a girl does who has a tough love relationship with her mother, but nonetheless, I think this movie is very important. It tells a powerful story about childhood acceptance and that it's okay not to be the person your parents imagined you as. Turning Red is also gorgeous from an animation standpoint. It has lots of funny dialogue and editing. This is hands down one of the funniest Pixar movies of all time too. And best of all, it's unconventional. On first watch, I thought I knew where this movie was going, but I was dead wrong. It's a weird movie for sure, and doesn't totally feel like Pixar. However, that's what makes Turning Red a little more special. Luca may tell a small-scale story that meanders now and then, but that's the charm of it. This is the children's version of a hangout movie, with vibrant colors, adorable characters, and moments that are bound to tug at your heartstrings. It's a film that reminds me how great summers were as a kid, and it definitely deserves more acknowledgement, because when people discuss their all-time favorite Pixar movies, they never mention this one. Of all the Pixar movies that came out during COVID, Soul is the one I wish I got to see in theaters most. Although, the Christmas Day Disney Plus release was a nice way to make up for it. There isn't a single film out there that makes me appreciate life more than Soul. This animated movie preaches to everyone how life should be lived to the fullest, without any regrets. It's beautiful, heartwarming, and tear-jerking. If you're in a dark state, give Soul a watch. I can't think of a better film out there for curing depression. And crazy enough, I'd argue this movie connects with adults more than it does with kids. As far as creativity goes, it's possibly Pixar's most clever film to date, making it not only a touching piece of adult art, but a flick enjoyable for all ages. Ah yes, the one and only Coco is my favorite Pixar film of their last 10 installments. As the oldest on this list, somehow Coco still stands out as the best looking. But visuals aside, Coco tells a remarkable story about keeping traditions alive and the importance of family heritage. The music is great, Miguel is such a lovable main character. I sob uncontrollably at the ending every time I watch it, and there's even a few twists I didn't see coming upon first time watch in theaters. In my earnest opinion, Coco to this day is Pixar's best movie since Toy Story 3, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Alright, and there you have it. That is my ranking of Pixar's last 10 movies. But how would you rank the last 7 or so years of Pixar? Let me know down below in the comments. And of course, as always, thank you all so much for watching this ranking video. Again, make sure you hit that like button, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. I'll catch you guys again later this week. See you then.